Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Today I have the opportunity to introduce you to Janei, and periodically you may hear her wee one jump in to join us on the call from time to time just to see what Mummy's up to. And we have the opportunity to talk a little bit about how she and her wife created their family. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited today to introduce you to JaneiJackson. Janei's here with me. So welcome, Janei. Please tell us about the members of your family.
Sure. So there's me, Janei, and my wife, Takiya. We've been together for 10 years this year. And then we have a 3-year-old.
Oh, that's a busy age.
Yes, yes, very busy.
What's your 3-year-old's name, may I ask?
Sure, Blake.
And just what if for listeners, I can tell you that Blake's adorable and has already come in to say hello once,
Yes,
but is off watching something to stay distracted while we chat.
yes.
So there's the three of you in your family. Can you tell us of all of the different ways that there are for members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community to create a family, how the two of you made the decision that you made to create your family the way you did?
Sure. So we both knew we wanted kids. When we first talked about having children, neither one of us had a strong desire to carry. So the original plan was that each of us would carry, presumably. But we talked about adoption. Private adoption was pretty expensive, so we didn't go with that. I know that some members of the queer community do foster care adoption. But we just didn't think that we could, handle, building a relationship with a child and then, them going back with their birth family. So we didn't do that either. And then, so he's pretty much settled on IUI. At the time, neither one of us had any major fertility issues. So my wife is a couple years older, so she decided to go first. But we settled on IUI because we didn't have any major fertility issues. And my wife is a couple years older. So we just figured that she would go first. And it was at the time we didn't have we lived in a state that didn't have mandated fertility coverage or anything. So everything was out of pocket.
Right.
Yeah, we just went to a local fertility clinic, used IUI on the third try. She was pregnant with Blake.
Wow. Third try. And as much as it is difficult each and every time you try and you're unsuccessful, 3 tries, as I'm sure you've come to learn talking with other people, is actually pretty fast in creating a family and creating a baby from that. There are different options in terms of donors for an IUI process. Did you go the route of using someone that you knew, or was an anonymous donor or a donor through a donor bank that you used?
So we used a donor from a donor bank. We didn't know anybody in our life that we would use as a known donor. And at the time we lived in a state that didn't have, there's some states we live in the US. There's some states in the US that have pretty strong protections for using known donors, and we didn't live in one of those states. So without knowing somebody personally, we went with a bank. And then we wanted to give any children we had the option to contact the donor. So it was important for us to use a willing to be known donor. We wanted to make sure that he had the option to meet or not meet, but contact. I think that's the agreement, contact. And then we did a lot of research with banks We chose a bank that we thought was like a little bit more like ethical. So, but we chose a bank where they have a lower like family limit. So there, I think it's 10. So that was important to us. And then, well, I don't know if you know, but it is hard, kind of hard to find Black donors.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, but luckily we were able to find a Black donor at the bank that we, wanted to go with. So
It's true. This is an aside and outside of your necessarily your area of expertise, perhaps, but do you think that is there a reason why it's harder for people to find Black donors, or why there are fewer Black donors willing to donate to programs like that, and to banks? Only because many people I've talked to are people who are Black who would like to also have a Black donor, but finding one can just feel like a needle in a haystack.
right.
Do you think that or can you think of any reason sort of off the top of your head why that may be the case?
I mean, I feel like there's probably like a multitude. I don't know if there's just one. I
Mhm.
think, I don't know if banks are putting, I think a lot of like for egg donors and sperm donors, a lot of it is through like college students.
Yeah.
And so I think they're, obviously they're putting in ads, I'm assuming in major colleges. But I don't know if if banks are specifically targeting historically Black colleges and universities. I mean, that might be something that would increase the number of like Black men that were willing to donate. And then I just think in the US, there is a history of, the US, government doing things, that aren't appropriate, when it comes to Black people. And I think that may play a role in maybe some Black men not wanting to, be involved in anything that seems like medical. But I honestly think there's probably just a multitude of reasons
Mhm.
and not just one.
Yeah, fair, because you can't do it if you don't know about it. I mean, you
Right.
just can't know what you don't know. But you're right. I mean, with the history that, and then I don't think necessarily Canada is outside of that either. With the history that North American governments have had, it's not surprising that someone might be hesitant or reluctant to be willing to make themselves vulnerable to any kind of a program,
Right.
right? But I wanted to ask, you made the decision to do IUI. You found a donor that you wanted to use, and on your third try, you were successful. Did you purchase other vials, and put them on hold so that later on down the road, should you decide that you are also going to carry, that you'll try with that same donor so that there's the genetic tie there for the kids, or
Yes, we did. So when we purchased the like specimen that have Blake, we purchased three. So we have two additional vials
excellent.
left for siblings.
Perfect. No pressure. If you could just get it done in one or two, that'd be great. That's that's amazing. And it is fun when there is the opportunity to both consider carrying a child at some point too, right? That you've both had that experience. Whether you are dying to carry a child or not, it's just a unique perspective and experience that you get to have within the dynamics of your family that other people who don't have two uteruses don't get to experience, right? That's
Right. We actually had to so like initially before we had Blake, um, we that the plan was for each of us to carry because neither one of us had a strong desire. But I have some like medical
Mm.
conditions where I won't, be able to carry like easily. So when we have a second, my wife will, is gonna carry the second as well.
That's the beauty of having the option, though. If you have medical concerns that make it difficult for you to be able to carry, then you have the opportunity still to have someone who will. And she made it through the first time, so she knows she'll get through the second time, no
Oh
problem.
yeah, yeah. She had a great pregnancy delivery experience, so that
Yep.
was pretty
Geez.
good.
Got pregnant on the third try, had a pretty easy pregnancy and birth. Wow, she should be giving out lottery tickets to people. That's
Right.
throughout the journey to create your family. You were saying that you lived in a state where it was less open to the whole process. Um,
Right.
than other states may be known to be. Were there times that either one of you were made to feel ostracized or othered because you were choosing to embark upon this journey of creating a family for yourselves?
Um, yeah, our experience was a little unique because my wife was pregnant during the pandemic. So, a lot of the times, just listening to different podcasts, especially yours with same-sex couples, like, both people are really involved in like all the doctor's appointments and things like that. So, during that time, only she could go to the doctor's appointments. And as far as like the fertility clinic that we use, we didn't have like any issues with us being a same-sex couple or anything like that. But there were times like when she went into an appointment where there was just an assumption that her partner was male, so she would have to like, correct them.
Yeah,
Um, so that definitely happened. But I think that most people are straight, so there's just that, assumption.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, she's very outspoken, so she doesn't have a issue with correcting any
yeah,
mistakes like that. Um, but I mean, yeah, I just feel like our experience was unique because she was pregnant during the pandemic, so it wasn't like we were both going in to the appointments. But at the hospital during delivery, like we were kind of worried about that.
mhm,
We lived in like like we call it like a blue bubble of a purplish state. Like so, we lived in Virginia
mhm.
at the time, but we lived in a pretty liberal portion of Virginia. And Blake happened to be born during Pride Month, so there was like all rainbows and things all over the hospital. So there wasn't um, anything, during labor or delivery that, came up as an issue. We did do a second parent adoption and we started that process before Blake was born. So our lawyer did mention, if they give you a hard time with like the birth certificate and names, like, don't get into an argument or back and forth with it. She could just fix it on the back end if an issue comes up. But there was no issue with that either. So yeah, we had a pretty positive experience. Like I said, other than, people assuming that her partner was male because she went to a lot of or most of the appointments alone.
Yeah.
We didn't have any negative experiences during that. But I will say being a parent, like once you have your child, you feel like you constantly have to come out, especially as your child. I feel like when he was younger, we were both going to like everything together.
Mhm.
But now it's like, sometimes one of us just goes to give the other person a break. So you do have to like, I feel like constantly
Yeah,
come out because again, people just assume
yeah.
um that that there's a mom and dad involved.
It's true. It's true. And before children are involved, you can make the decision, okay, do I feel like having this conversation with somebody or not? But once you have a child, they're listening. Even at 3, Blake hears
Right.
every word you say, whether he understands it or not. So there's this constant, not just you have to out yourself because if somebody asks about his father, well, he doesn't have a father. He has another
Right.
mom, and he needs to hear you say that confidently so that he knows that when people ask him, he can be confident about it. But
Right.
it is a whole, you don't have the luxury of going, "Oh, do I feel like having this argument today?" Like,
Right. Right. No, you don't.
but he'll just tell you now by 3, he's probably heard enough times said, oh, he doesn't have a dad, he has another mom. So when somebody says something, even if you don't chime right in, he's going to be like, I don't have a dad. I have
Right.
another mom.
Yes.
Right. He's going to out you for yourself. So it doesn't really matter. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about babyREADY because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information. You've alluded to this already. There are costs associated with creating a family in the queer community because all of our families are intentionally created and they don't just happen. Are you comfortable giving us an idea of the kinds of resources you needed to spend in order to, medications and like hormone medications and purchasing the donor sperm and the lawyer fees and things like that? I mean, it adds up. It's surprisingly high how fast
Yes.
it adds up.
Yeah, it was, I mean, so to have Flake, like we purchased the 3 vials of sperm, that was about $3,000. Um, well, so initially we went with another bank, because again, Black donors are very difficult to find. The donor only had 5 vials left. Um, we used 2 of them and we didn't, like those 2 didn't work. So we were nervous because that means we will only have 3 left. So we ended up selling those back to that bank and then going with the bank we ultimately went with. So there was that, we bought like sperm twice.
Right.
So I mean, that was probably about like 5,000, and then the second parent adoption I believe was like 2,500, and then the IUIs, the first 2 because she didn't have any fertility issues, we monitored at home with like ovulation strips, but then the last time we did monitoring through the clinic, which I think was like $2,000, and just like so yeah, I mean it adds up very quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, very quickly.
It does add up very quickly, and if you don't have the opportunity to have access to insurance to cover any of that, then it's all out of pocket. And there's a lot of places that don't want to give a loan to people who are wanting to create a family because there's nothing. I want to say there's nothing tangible from it. There's obviously
Right,
a baby tangible from it, but they can't repossess a baby if you don't make your
right,
payment on your loan.
right. That's
Far
such
as
a
I
good
know, they
point.
don't. So it's money that you have to come up with kind of in lump sums all the time.
Right. Right. And it is, it's definitely frustrating because, straight couples can just, say we've been trying and have things covered. And, with, same sex couples or just even queer couples in general, like you almost start at a deficit because you spent so much money on trying to have a baby. Like that money could have been saved toward college, daycare, other expenses. So
Mhm.
that part is frustrating, but I mean, we kind of knew it going in.
Yeah.
Um, so
And where did you go to get the kinds of answers that you needed beforehand? Did you have other peers who'd sort of been down the path before you that they could say, oh, you want to try this, you need to do this, this is the lawyer you should talk to? Or did you have to go and find all of those answers for yourself?
we pretty much had to find it ourselves. So like we didn't meet others like same-sex parents until we like had our son. So it was like joining Facebook groups and like, using the search function or just asking questions to get information about like, where you started or where
Mhm.
we would start and what kind of our options were. Um so that was kind of like yeah, that's kind of how we had to figure it out. Um, as far as like finding the lawyer, finding a bank, things like that.
Yeah. And that takes time and it takes its toll because you're constantly feeling like you're doing more research to when at the end of the day you hear about your straight friends who have babies and they didn't even necessarily try to get pregnant and they just got
Right,
pregnant, they didn't have to think about it. So it can feel daunting to have to do all the research to be able to start the process.
right. Because then if like we didn't necessarily have anybody that we could ask, like again, in person. Like
Mhm.
again, we use a lot of Facebook groups and things like that. But like, I mean, I couldn't ask like family members or anything. They
Mhm.
wouldn't even know what
Yeah.
to suggest. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know.
right, right.
Are there any words of caution that you would share with other people who are embarking upon the journey to create their own family in a similar way to how you did?
I guess I would say, like if you're in the US, like, I mean, please like do a second parent adoption. I think a lot of people are under the assumption that that's not something they have to do, but I think it's really important to like protect your family.
Mhm.
So definitely recommend doing that. I'm trying to think of words. And I also would say like do like, try to do some research. There are a lot of fertility clinics that'll put like rainbows and things on their website, but aren't always knowledgeable about, our families.
Mhm.
So just making sure, whether that's like looking on Facebook groups, like Googling, or if you happen to have a queer community that are parents, like asking them.
Mhm.
Again, just because somebody like, puts a rainbow on their website doesn't mean that they're always knowledgeable and like affirming for our community.
Yeah. It's true, and there are so many layers to it, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of members of the queer community who are perfectly okay with gay and lesbian folks, but they're not really comfortable with working with the trans community. And so,
Right.
what does putting a rainbow in their window mean to them?
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are there any bits of information about your journey that you were hoping to share that we haven't had a chance to chat about just yet?
Well, I will share like for like our journey with like baby number two. So we did take a little bit of a different route and use IVF. And there is a clinic in the US, it's called CNY Fertility, that is a lot more affordable for IVF. I think they're like about a third of the cost of what most other clinics charge. So that's been um, that's kind of the route we took for planning for our second child. And I think, it's helpful for other people in the US who maybe can't who have, the same issue we have with insurance coverage. And then who IUI might not be an option.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and they're pretty queer affirming, we found, as a same-sex female couple.
Mhm.
Um, so there's definitely that option.
That's fantastic to know, actually, because it is expensive. IVF is expensive. You put
Hmm.
all of the medications and retrieval
Yes.
and testing and everything together, then transfer back in. It is an expensive venture, so it's nice to know that there's an organization out there that's really wanting to make it as affordable as they can so that people get the results that they're looking for. Thank you for sharing that. That's important information. And where you are now, is your insurance still such that none of it's covered or?
So it's getting a lot better this go round. So we live in Maryland now, which they have mandated fertility coverage. You still have to have a diagnosis of infertility. But they did make it a little bit more inclusive. So like if you have three failed IUIs, then if your job has fertility coverage as a either as a queer couple or as a like single parent by choice, you have to be provided coverage for IVF. So like most of the medication that can, so I don't know how familiar you are with IVF, but there's some medication that is not like the general pharmacy is not going to have. So that we did, pay out of pocket for. But like other medications, were pretty much covered at a really low cost through our insurance. So that was helpful. And then all of the monitoring and blood work was covered with just a small copay. So that was nice.
Excellent. And that does make it feel a little bit more manageable too when you're
Yes.
you're taking
Yes, it does.
what's really truly a more invasive route to family creation with the second
Right.
journey, right? IUI is invasive. Please don't misunderstand. I don't mean to say that it's
Oh,
not, but
oh no, no,
IVF
I
is
get it.
definitely far more invasive in
Yes.
terms of top to bottom, all the things, right?
Yes.
So you have eggs on ice, do you?
Yes, I just did a retrieval at the end of July. And yeah, it went pretty well. We have I think 6 embryos.
Nice.
So
Well done. And so is this a reciprocal IVF that you'll do?
yes.
Excellent. So this is
Yeah,
still
yeah.
your journey. This is still your connection to the process. You may not be carrying, but you still have the genetic connection. And as
Yes.
you said, the use the same donor as you did for Blake. So the children will be biologically related too, right?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. That's the retrieval process. I understand. I haven't personally done it, but it's a journey. Hormonal
Yes.
fluctuations and the whole 9 yards, right?
Yes, it's yeah, I was oh my God, it was so like nerve-wracking. I was like, yeah. I have I have fibroids, which is why I can't carry.
Mhm.
So when I was going through like the monitoring appointments where they like measure the follicles and things like that, like I thought I would only have like just like a couple of eggs. But I guess my fibroids were covering um the the other follicle. So I happened to get a lot more than was expected, which was nice. But yes, it's such a stressful. I mean, I've watched like YouTube videos of other people going through it, but when you go through it yourself, like, it's just yeah, it's very stressful.
Yeah. Oh, it would be. It would be. But that's done. That's behind you. You can have your hormones level off and then pass the torch on for the next
Yes.
portion of the journey, right?
Yes.
Before we wrap up, you've listened to the show before, you know that my favorite question to ask at the end of every episode is for you to tell me what is your very favorite part of parenting?
Oh man. It's hard. There's so many. I'm trying to think of mine. I mean, I would say like being able to like see things through like his perspective, like just like re-experience some things. Like he just gets so excited. Like we just went on a cruise and he was so fascinated by like the water and that he can just have endless ice cream, like things that like maybe to an adult are like small, but it's kind of I really like seeing his excitement, like kind of experiencing things for the first time. Um, I would say that's my favorite part right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. It's true. They've got such a fascination and appreciation, right? Sometimes their fascination and appreciation for the world helps us slow down and complain a little bit less about everything,
Yes, it does.
right? Reminds us to be grateful.
Yes, definitely.
I want to take a moment and thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, and I am sending all the baby dust your way for an easy and smooth pregnancy, labor, and
Thank
birth for
you.
the arrival of your next child.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.